aye. Ms. Ennis?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Ms. Ra?
Ashley Rowe?
I'm sorry?
Was that Rowe? Ashley Rowe?
No, Ms. Ra, one of the panel members.
She's no longer on the panel, Cecily.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep, we still have her on the chart. Okay. Mr. Reynolds, I see you there.
Hey, Cecily, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Sharma?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Sauce? Oh, I think maybe she was not going to make this one. Ms. Sauce? Julie? Okay. Mr. Stevens? I think Mr. Stevens did reply that he would be on, correct?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so he may join us later, but we've already have a quorum. I know Mr. Yusufero is not joining us today. Okay, so Marta, are there any changes to the tentative agenda as published?
No, there are no changes, Cecily. We're all good to go with four projects for tonight's agenda.
Great. Okay. In the February 13th, 2023 email, panel members, you received a draft of the meetings of the February 8th meeting. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes? And are there any corrections or additions? Hearing none, who would like a motion to accept the minutes as circulated?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay, I counted at least 5, so the motion passes. And thank you for that. Okay, as we start this evening, I'll read an opening statement and then we'll move on to the agenda items. Sorry, need to get to the right. Oh, give me just a moment. I must have closed out that file. There we go. Okay. All right. Title 4, Subtitle 2, Part 1, Sections 32-4-203 and 32-4-204 established the Design Review Panel, otherwise known as DRP. The DRP was established to encourage design excellence and shall act in a consulting and advisory capacity to the agencies involved in the process for reviewing development plans. I'm going to summarize here. The objectives of the DRP's assessment include spatial, visual, and functional relationships related to topography, the natural and built features, streetscape, pedestrian, pathways, playgrounds, recreational amenities and parks, parking garages and other structures, as well as landscape and how that landscape enhances architecture, street character, improves the microclimate, provides transition between dissimilar uses, screens objectionable views and uses, and reduces noise levels and glare. In carrying out its duties, the DRP utilizes the guidelines, plans, and the architectural principles in the Comprehensive Manual of Development Policies and/or Master Plan, as well as other guidelines and regulations adopted into law. Certain areas of the county were designated by the County Council to require review by the DRP. The panel will provide a technical review of the proposed project. Issues relative to zoning, setback relief, environmental and stormwater management, and traffic regulations do not fall under the purview of the DRP and are regulated through the appropriate agencies responsible for those aspects of the development plan review process. The panel consists of 9 members. All are professionals with practical knowledge in the matters of design for the purposes of making recommendations on a particular project. 3 members shall constitute a quorum. The attendance and comments of each member shall be recorded in the minutes, which shall be an open record and available along with all documents submitted to the panel for inspection and copying by the public. There will be an opportunity for the community to offer comments and suggestions at the conclusion of the applicant's presentation. These comments will also be included in the written record of the meeting. When a speaker is called to speak, please keep your comments focused on design perspectives within your allotted 2 minutes of time. If you're speaking on behalf of a community group, you will have 5 minutes. Otherwise, we do ask you to stick with to the 2 minutes allotted. At the conclusion of the meeting, the Department of Planning will sum up the recommendations of the panel before a motion for vote is suggested. Recent legislation has changed the panel's recommendations to be advisory on the hearing officer and the various county agencies, unless the hearing officer or agencies find the panel's actions constitute an abuse of its discretion or are unsupported by the documentation and evidence presented. Disposition of the plan will be determined as either approved with conditions, or needing additional review with a second meeting being required. Okay, thank you for listening to that. And with that, we'll start with the first applicant, which will be 8822 Bel Air Road, Perry Hall Commercial Review. And presenter, after I remind you, this is a return project, so we ask that you focus on, for the panel, please focus on the elements that were responsive to the comments and how your design adjusted and how you responded to those previous comments. With that, we do ask that you be expedient in your presentations, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bedwell. This is Tim Catroco here on behalf of the applicant, and I have with me this evening Mr. Paul Marchese, representing the owner. And we have Brian Olson, our architect, and Matt Bishop, our landscape architect with Kimley Horn. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bishop expeditiously and have him make the presentation and address the issues that remain unaddressed at this time. So Mr. Bishop, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Excellent.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Excuse me, I'll run through this pretty quickly. This is our third time back. So I would just summarize some of the plan changes and architectural changes, and please stop me if you want to stop on any of these items and dive into them deeper. So from the last round of comments back in September, there were comments about the parking and how we still had a row of parking in front of the building between the building and Bel Air Road. We still have an angled row of parking in front, but that is now permitted based on a new council resolution that allows angled parking, a single row in front. Yes, please, if you could move to the site plan, that would be great.
Matt, I think we have the first glitch for tonight's meeting. I will try to reload very quickly. If you can continue speaking, and I will try to reload it very quickly.
Absolutely. So that was one. One of the other comments was to include a masonry trash enclosure at the rear of the property. So we've added that to the plans. It's now shown on the plan and in a detail in the DRP presentation. There were comments about site lighting. We have added 3 light poles in the rear parking area, and we've specified pole and fixtures in the DRP presentation. And we've also added 2 poles along our frontage of Bel Air Road that are in keeping with the same poles and spacing that are at the Perry Hall Elementary School. So those details are now shown in the presentation as well. There was a comment about the sidewalk parallel to Bel Air Road. We are now showing a 6-foot wide sidewalk for the entire frontage, which is set back 2 feet from the curb along Bel Air Road. And the presentation and plan that we submitted about a month ago showed one defined sidewalk connection from Bel Air Road back to the front of our building. And our plans show that for now. There's also requests for outdoor seating areas. Our plans show 2 outdoor seating areas in the front of the building, one at each end of the parking lot. The one on the north side is larger and can accommodate more outdoor furniture. And finally, the building materials. There was discussion about the building materials. We had originally shown tilt-up construction with stamped concrete to make it look like brick. As you'll see in the presentation when it loads, we found a panel that has integral brick So it's real brick material in a panelized construction. So those are the main comments from the September presentation. You'll see here, yep, thank you. Marta, do you want to go through the planning department's staff report, and then we can show the revised plan real quickly and show how we address those last couple of comments?
Sure. Cecily, if I can go ahead with the staff report.
Yes, and that's fine. We are going to change up our the way we proceed, and we will have applicants present, planning, read their staff report, and then applicants will have an opportunity to respond to the staff report. So just as a preview for all members presenting tonight, all applicants, that will be the process that we go through. So yes, Marta, please proceed.
Okay, thank you so much. And as I mentioned, we have our first technical glitch because there are so many files, so I will need to upload one more time very quickly the staff report, and unfortunately I lost all of my files due to the technical glitches. So just be patient with me, thank you. I will try to do this as quickly as possible.
Well, Marta is bringing up that file. I think everyone in for this applicant has done so, but just a reminder, when you are presenting, if you're speaking on behalf of an applicant, please do have your camera on. So thank you for this first presentation. You all did very well without the reminder.
Thank you, Cecily, and I have my presentation. I just need to share it very quickly. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I will start this site design comments. Staff recommends approval of the site design intent subject to the following condition. Per resolution number 4322, sidewalks should be a minimum 6 feet in width and setbacks at least 2 feet from the edge of curb paving. Sidewalk access to the building should be provided not only along driveways, but also mid-parcel. Provide sidewalk access to the building along the proposed driveway and at mid-parcel. Provide dimensions for the proposed sidewalk to demonstrate that all requirements outlined in resolution number 4322 are met. So I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, there were one resolution after the second presentation was done in between second and third review, there is a new resolution which passed, which was approved by the council on October 3rd, 2022, and that's why I am citing this new resolution. For form and image, the applicant, so the staff recommends approval. In regards to open space and landscape design, staff recommends approval subject to the following condition. On the plan, indicate and label outdoor seating areas. CCMDP pages 106 and 131. The proposed plan shows one tree, but there is no outdoor furniture shown on the plan. Also, please provide an accurate 3D rendering showing the proposed outdoor seating areas. The submitted 3D rendering do not show the proposed outdoor seating area. In regards to streets, parking and circulation, staff recommends approval subject to the same conditions that we mentioned above. provide sidewalk access to the building along the proposed driveway and its mid parcel, provide dimensions for the proposed sidewalk to demonstrate that all requirements outlined in resolution number 4322 are met. In regards to signage and lighting, staff recommends approval of the signage and lighting design based on the following. Number one, label on the plan all proposed light poles, including in the rear of the property. Number two, provide locations and dimensions for future tenants' signage and architectural design. Staff recommends approval of the architectural design, subject to the following condition. Resolution number 4322 states decorative windows features such as canopies should be provided. The building design shall comply with this requirement. And number two, provide building elevation for the rear. This concludes our staff report.
Thank you. Are there any responses from the applicant?
Yes, we do have a few. Are you able to pull up the presentation that I sent you earlier?
Yes, but again, I need to upload it very quickly. You can go ahead and start.
Okay.
Matt, I appreciate that. While I'll try to bring up the
Sure.
your responses as quickly as possible.
So I don't know if they're in order with the comments, but one of the things we did to address planning's comments was added a second sidewalk connection from Bel Air Road to the building. I know the resolution talks about a mid-block connection, but I don't know that that's appropriate on such a narrow lot. So what we did instead is added a connection at either end of the property. Outdoor seating areas are labeled. They're labeled on the plan as public space, but they're intended to be outdoor gathering and seating areas. And the architect has put together a new 3D rendering that shows the building facade and some outdoor seating areas we can show in a minute. Marta, could you scroll to the site plan, which is probably mid-package?
Please
Yeah.
let me, this one would work.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. And it's a little small still, but that works. What else do we have from a site standpoint? I think that's it. I think everything else was building related. So if you could scroll through to the architectural section real quick. One more. One more. Thank you. So this is, oh, go back one, please. So this is the revised building elevation. We've put some signage on the canopies. I know there was a comment about providing canopies and windows. Canopies are there above the entrances, and we've shown future signage once we have tenants identified. And we also in the package have provided a rear building elevation, which was requested.
This also adds some tables where the seating is going to be.
And Marta, if you could scroll a few more slides in, we can show quick details, some of the details. Keep going, please.
That's the proposed rear elevation that was asked for. That's the side. The one above it was the rear. The other way. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, fairly straightforward elevation. Again, we're going to use painted precast panels at the rear of the building. Just because this really isn't a public facade. So, and then scroll down. One more. So these are actually sample panels from the factory that show the. We're still going to use a concrete wall panel, but we're actually cast. That's what you're looking at there is actual brick that's actually laid and cast into the panel. So it's actual brick that's cast into the panel. See the way it's detailed there.
And there's also other details. So we picked out some light sconces for the wall packs, and that's the light pole that's up at the Perry Hall Elementary School. So we've had shown those along Bel Air Road.
And do you have those shown on the site plan now?
They are shown on the site plan, but we also have a note that it's kind of a caveat that we need to work with DPW to put the right spacing and location when we get to that point.
Always. Okay, understood.
And there's the masonry trash enclosure detail on the plan. Yeah, if you scroll to the front, there are labels. They may be obscured a little bit by the rendering, but there are two poles 150 feet apart along the frontage.
Any other points to make, Matt, in response to the staff comments?
I think that's it. I mean, like I said, there's some additional details about wayfinding signage, and the trash enclosure detail, but I think that addresses just about everything.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for responding. So Marta will now move to open the floor for public input and feedback from the community. Are there any speakers from the public signed up?
Let me check with Brett and Jen. Brett, Jen?
Not for this project at this time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So now we'll move on to the panel discussion. I would ask that the panel members turn your cameras on at this point, and then we'll go through. Sorry, let me move back to my list. Let's start with Kelly. Any comments or questions?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay. Mr. Khan?
Yes, one is, I think the project through this period of effort has improved substantially, and I appreciate all that effort. The only question I have is that the plan indicates several doors located in the center building, but all the perspective drawings and elevations do not show those doors. I'm assuming they need access at that location.
Sorry, which the plan doesn't show the doors or the building elevations?
Plan shows the doors, the elevations do not.
Yeah,
I don't know that that's an issue per
there are
se.
doors to the right and left, but the center section is a basic. So there really aren't doors in the center section. Just storefronts to match.
Just to clarify. I have no comments.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Hey, Cecily, I agree with the staff report. I think the one comment in there was just about the seating areas. And if you look at this plan and zoom in on each end, it doesn't seem like there's going to be room for the seating that was shown and these tree planters. The trees are just shown sitting in the concrete. So I would just encourage the county to look at that when they move forward.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Mr. Sharma?
No, I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Okay, and I do see Mr. Stevens has joined us. Mr. Stevens?
Hello. In my review of the site and the architectural, it seems very appropriate. I'm very happy to see that we actually have face brick that's integrated within the precast concrete panel. So I have no other questions or concerns.
Yeah, for me, likewise, I do think the last remaining maybe issue or just resolution is the trees and the seating. So very minor. I'm glad to see the progression in response to comments and agree that I think this has come a long way. And you've got, thank you from the team to put together a point-by-point response to the comments. So I think with that, we could move to a fairly simple motion. I would ask that one of my fellow panel members be sure that you make it clear if it's approved with conditions, or additional review needed.
Cecily, I would make a motion to approve the project per the conditions noted in the staff report.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, if not, may I have a second from one of the panel members?
I second.
Okay, that was Mr. Stevens, thank you. So we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And I'm going to clarify because I know that probably Marta or Jen is going to, that is, we're agreeing with the conditions, and that's a conditional approval with staff review or admin review, correct? Just to clarify that point. Okay. All right. So that motion carries, and thank you very much, first team, for making this streamlined and addressing all of the comments and going through your presentation well. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2 is 808 Reisterstown Road in the Pikesville Commercial Review area. Presenter, again, I'll remind you to turn on your camera and please, move through your presentation, not at a rapid pace, but as quickly as possible, if you would. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Martha, are you able to pull up the latest images?
Yes, I just did. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So, well, so this project. So first off, my name is Donnie Inkrey. I'm an architect. But more importantly, I'm the husband to the person I'm trying to build this project for, which is a retail store for my wife's clothing store. We're proposing a new building at 808 Reisterstown Road. We're demolishing the existing building. There's been some development since the last time we presented. The site plan you see here was based on the approved variance, but since then I've worked with the neighbor at 806 Reisterstown Road to adjust the project design to satisfy his concerns. So, Martha, what would you like me to present? Would you like me to present the older design or the new one?
So we prepared our staff report based on the older design, but
Okay.
We would like to read our staff report if that's okay with the
Okay.
teacher.
Well, so I guess just to respond to the staff report comments from this design, we provided a three-sided brick enclosure around the dumpster on the top left corner. We provided a bench for outdoor seating and bike racks. That's along the right side of the building. We also provided, we showed on the site plan the location of the parking lot light fixtures. There was also a cut sheet that was provided. And we also pushed back the front of the building along Reisterstown Road so it's flush with the neighbor building. And one last note, we also showed to the right of the parking lot 42-inch tall vegetation screening to shield the parking lot from the side street. That is what I have.
So Cecily, if I can read the staff report now, and then we have the revised drawings addressing some issues.
Yes, thank you, Marta.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start with site design. Staff recommends approval of the site design. Form and image, staff recommends approval. open space and landscape design. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Provide a detailed landscape plan with a list of all proposed plants. Consider native and adaptive plants. Provide an outdoor seating area, bench detail. Provide a bike rack detail. Provide landscape screening and enclosure details for the proposed dumpster. The enclosure should match the principal structure in proposed materials. All requirements for condition H of the Baldwin County Landscape Manual are to be met. For street parking and circulation, staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. Number one, the parking must be in compliance with the March 1st, 2023 opinion and order case number 2022-0296-A. Number two, the sidewalk must be in compliance with the March 1, 2023 opinion and order case number 2022-0296-A. And number three, provide colors for the proposed sidewalk. For signage and lighting, staff recommends approval subject to the following condition. Provide additional signage details, including size, dimensions, and illumination. All signage must meet county requirements of Section 450 of the BCZR. In architectural design, staff recommends approval of the architectural design. And final recommendation, staff recommends approval of the 808 Reisterstown project subject to conditions outlined in the March 1, 2023 opinion and order case number 2022-0296-A, and that all of the above comments are properly and successfully addressed by the applicant. And this concludes our staff report.
Very good. Mr. Uncre, do you have, with these images up for, I guess, the response to those, would you like to point out anything further that go through the elevations or anything further before we move on?
Yeah, so I'll just say that I'll be happy to address any of the staff report comments. What I would ask is, since we have my wife and I have a limited due diligence period that ends in about 5 weeks, if we're able to, I'll present the design, but if we're able to, approve, with comments and obviously I'll verify with the staff, planning staff and the chairman to make sure they're all addressed, but yeah.
And Tanya, would you like to describe the revised drawings that you provided?
Sure. So there are two PDFs that will present. The first will be the site plan, the floor plans, and then the second one will be the updated 3D renderings. So what you see here is the revised site plan. I met with the neighbor, the owner of 806, which is the building to the left. He had strong concerns for his existing windows that would have been blocked in the approved variance project. So I want to be neighborly and wanted to work something out with him. So we had a very nice meeting earlier in the week, and we agreed on this new design that allows his windows to not be blocked. So in this site plan, the section of white between the two buildings is what I call the lower roof section. That's a new one-story portion of the building that is at the top of that section is right below his windows. Therefore, his windows are not blocked. And we have the taller portion of the building and with the big X. That one is at least between 15 to 18 feet of separation between the windows. So there's plenty of natural light and views that can be taken out of those windows. Other than that, everything else is very similar to what we had on the previous design. We have our outdoor seating, our vegetation, and our bike racks. Here are the floor plans. To the right is the ground level floor plan. There are two suites. My wife's store is Suite A, which is retail for women's clothing. There's entrances off of the front and the rear. And then Suite B is an office for my architecture studio. And then to the left is what I call the mezzanine level. You'll see the lower roof section, and then the box that's a little bit taller, which has just taller ceilings and the small mezzanine in the top right corner.
Okay, thank you.
Martha, are you
sorry.
able to pull up? Sorry, Martha, are you able to pull up the 3D renderings?
Yes, I will try to pull up very quickly because they're in different folder. I had everything ready, but again, there's
No problem.
technical glitches. So I will try to find them very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
They are uploading. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you. You can click the next one. So this is a proposed facade on Long Reisterstown Road. The white building to the left is the neighboring building at 806 Reisterstown Road. You can see in the middle section we have the lower roof portion that allows the windows to not be blocked. And then there's to the right, the one-story building jumps up a little bit higher for some proper ceilings and to be a little bit more proportional to the existing building to the left. Next. So here's a ground level view. Martha, I just, as a heads up, I think there were more updated renderings that were sent after this, but I'll talk through these. It's not a problem. The later renderings have more proper signage than these, but I can still talk through these. So if we go back just a couple slides, one more. So here's thank you. So you can see the windows to the left of the neighbor that we're maintaining. The previous design we had was a much taller two-story building, but as you can see, we kept the same spirit in that previous design. Our proposed exterior materials are brick. We have a tan brick and a dark gray brick. There's a lot of neighboring buildings, specifically the famous Pikes Theater that we took cues from for our material and color palette. We're proposing flatter black metal awnings that over the windows in the entrance, and that those also act as a light shelf to bounce light into the clear story windows, so natural light penetrates deeper into the space. Next. Here's a side view along Hawthorne Avenue. You'll see to the left is the entrance to our architecture studio, and then there's a nice black metal staircase that takes you up to the small mezzanine on the second floor. And you could also see in the top right of the building are our proposed light fixtures that add light for the parking lot. Next. And lastly, this is a view from the rear, from the parking lot. One thing that was important was to make sure that the design from the rear has the same level of hierarchy as the design from the front. So we have the same materials wrap around, nice signage in the center. And then you can see to the right is the lower portion of the building that allows those windows to be maintained. And that is what I have.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move to open the floor to anyone from the public. Is there anyone signed up to speak?
I don't see anyone on my end. Brett, Jen?
Not for this project, no.
Jen, is anyone?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll go to the panel next. James, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Can we go back to the front elevation? Yeah. I guess I'm very happy that there was a resolution to accommodate the windows on the second floor of that existing building. That one story really works well to really create some natural light, keeping the natural light into the existing building. With that being said, I'm not a fan of that one story being the dark gray. It just seems like it should be the same tan brick that's on the larger building. I mean, it's all one building, so I don't understand the need to create that one story as a different color palette. With that being said, with going to the main entry, you know, I'm fine with it, but I don't understand why you changed the door entry and that's above the canopy and with glazing, and why not just keep it with the dark brick to really create a really strong focal point for entry into the building? I mean, those are my two comments. The real strong one is the color of the brick on the one story. Can we turn to the side elevation, Martha? Yeah, this one. I'm fine with this overall. I guess my primary concern is that exposed exterior stair on such a public side of the building. You know, I would more than likely like to see that in the rear, but you know, I understand the necessity of taking it of it accommodating that second floor on that side of the building, but it's just not the best place for it. That's all. So that, I mean, that's outside of that. I'm you know, those are my three comments. Everything else seems fine.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sharma?
All right. So I have a question. Can we go to the front view of the building? So the space between two buildings, it's blacked out, some black wall with the doors or something. Is this a garage or what purpose it serves?
So that is no, that's part of the storefront. That's part of the retail space.
So it has a covered roof or it's just a wall?
The lower middle section has a roof on top. I mean, it's a one-story building.
Okay.
Marta, maybe go to the floor plan where you can clearly see the program on the first level.
All right. That's all. Thank you.
Sir, did you, so that was just a question. Do you have any other
Yeah, that was a
comments?
question I was just wondering.
Okay.
So if you look on the level one plan, you'll see the bottom left corner of that floor plan, you'll see those two windows, and that is an extension of the retail space.
Okay. All right.
Any further comments or questions, Mr.
No,
Sharma?
no further comment. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll move to
I'm sorry.
Matt. Oh, go ahead.
I had a quick question. One would be, I appreciated Mr. James' comments. One would be an appropriate time for me to respond to them.
Usually, I mean, if there is a direct response to a question that he posed, otherwise, I mean, we're talking amongst the panel members, we may have differing opinions. I would say, you know, it might, you know, I would say hold off on that. Unless there's a direct, you know, question that you can answer. Okay, we'll move to Matt next.
Just two comments. The first, the bike rack location shown in the stairs, it doesn't seem like that's going to be a feasible location to park bikes. So I would just recommend confirming the dimensions to make sure that so where it's hard to tell on the site plan, but in the rendering, you can see them kind of under the stairs and then the columns. And then the second comment is just the preservation of the lawn area along Reisterstown Road. It seems like with the storefronts here that it would be more appropriate to have the sidewalk come up and engage the building so people could walk by, look in the shop and in the storefronts. It just seems like that's going to start to get trampled and be a maintenance issue. So I would recommend extending the sidewalk to the building in front of what looks like two buildings along Reisterstown Road. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Mr. Khan, I don't think we've gone to you yet on this one.
Sure. Can we go back to the floor plan? I do have a question about this. If we look at Suite B and then the space behind Suite B, that's all part of Suite A that tucks in behind there. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
I guess my concern is that exterior stair as well. I think, you know, from our experience with the county, with respect to snow and ice, they're going to require either a covering over it or some way to keep the snow and ice off. So I would check that very carefully because, again, I think that's sort of inappropriate, honestly, for that space, which I gather then is part of Suite B in the upper level of Suite B. But I would look at the code requirements for the requirement for that second exit. There may not even be one, but I would hope that there's a better resolution of that stair on the side of the building. But otherwise, I don't have any additional comments.
Thank you. Let's see, we'll move to Kelly.
Hi, I agree with the stair location and the stark contrast of kind of the color. Of the color of the stair and the bike rack. I feel like they're competing with each other, but the location I agree with Mr. Khan and Mr. Renaud on the location. I actually do believe the color of the front facade. I don't have an issue with the gray as long as it's articulated and it looks like it's set back a little bit. And is articulated differently. So I do not have a color with the dark gray on the lower extension of Suite A, and appreciate that it's been dropped down to allow for more light in the adjacent 2-story. I think my only question is with regards to staff comments, and would ask this of the other panelists as well. Are there any concerns, and perhaps I missed this from I did not attend the last meeting, in absent of a detailed landscape plan and landscape screening of enclosure details for the proposed dumpster are not included in this presentation, more so the landscape plan. That's not included and not represented in this particular plan, and would like to see how that shakes out. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. I think that lands on me then. So, you know, I largely agree. I think the debate between the panelists is on the color of the hyphen, I'll call it the lower one-story portion between. I think that's a matter of preference. I think I would agree with Kelly that having it set back allows it to be a similar, a differentiated color. However, the program is the same, so I can understand, the thought of it should just be, the same color as the rest of the facade, since the use hasn't changed. So I think there's a debate, but I think that's an aesthetic preference debate. I'm not going to be the tiebreaker. I think that's, I think that's probably left to the applicant and their aesthetic senses. The stair, I think, when first looking at the stair bike, I thought, oh, that's good because it's somewhat covered, and, could be lighted, and, I'd feel better about having my bike under there potentially, if I had to leave my bike anywhere. But I do agree with, if that stair, A, is it necessary? B, is it, could it be pushed to the rear facade? Would be definitely preferred. Definitely would like to understand that, there is enough physical room to lock a bike up and to move around it without the columns being an issue and whatnot, in there. So just kind of following up on other people's comments on that. The landscape plan, I'll ask the question so you can respond to. Is there, I don't think I did see, but is there a detailed landscape plan?
I don't have a detailed landscape at the moment. I am planning to engage with a landscape architect to create one, as we, when we submit for our permits. I will say that, we are proposing, for, some trees and, native bushes to shield the parking lot, but I don't have anything specific species or of those items.
Okay. Beyond that, I kind of will fall in a middle ground, related to the front hardscape landscape. I think maybe expanding the area to at least move to the full window opening under the boutique entry, so that there is a little bit more room at the front if there are, if you want to put signage boards out, sandwich boards out for signage, or roll racks out for sales, or, do some other things. I think an expanded area there is nice, but where there is, in front of the architecture studio portion where there may not likely be the need for that extra paving, I think a little bit of softening or, potted plants landscape could be good. So those would be my kind of, yelling on to other folks' comments. So I think, the panel, I think, other than the division on the one comment about the hyphen of the lower one-story portion, I think we're largely in agreement. Does anyone from the panel want to rebut any of that? I heard about the stair, making sure it works with the bike rack, checking to make sure the stair isn't, a covering over the stair isn't required by the county. That's a little bit out of our purview, but nonetheless, it should be taken into consideration. Maybe expanding some of the pavement area in front of the boutique minimally. Anything else from the panel members, or does that summarize the conversation? Okay, so I will ask if a panel member can move a motion, and again, please make sure we understand if it's approved with conditions, approved, or an additional return to DRP is needed, and if if approved with conditions, can that be administered by staff?
I guess I'll take a stab at this.
Please.
I'm sorry about that. I'll take a stab at this. I guess the only other concern that I really have is pertaining to, I don't have a dog in the fight with the aesthetics of that one story. That can be, it is an aesthetic issue. My only concern is the main entry, the door entry, and the above area being more of the dark tone brick as opposed to the glazing to really produce an entry, more of a focal point there, as it was with the original two exterior front elevations in the prior submission. But anyway,
Oh, so sorry, James, did you mean removing the transom glazing just under the Mimi signage?
Yes.
And filling that in with brick?
Yes.
See, I mean, I would differ on that. I like the rhythm of the openings. Again, I don't know. Any other panel members want to weigh in? That wasn't clear to me in your comments. I apologize for that.
I mean, if that's the case, then I would, if we're going to keep the glazing, I would probably say, let's recess that entry just to make it more prominent. But again, I mean, I don't know if that falls into aesthetics on one part or the other, but you know, that's my comment.
Okay. Anybody else from the panel want to weigh in on that?
So as Liz is, Matt, I actually like it the way it is to get the light up into the mezzanine. I think the rhythm's nice on the streetscape.
Thanks, Matt.
I agree as well. That is a 2-story high space, which is effectively 2 bays wide. And I think having the light at the upper level on both panels makes sense.
The only thing oh, go ahead, Kelly.
No, I was just going to say I agree as well. I like the rhythm. I like the rhythm of the facade.
James, does that give you enough input then to make a motion?
I make a motion that we keep the rhythm of the existing facade. We keep the color of the 1-story building on the front facade. We relocate the bike rack to the rear of the building, and I guess the applicant really needs to really study that exterior stair again, and hopefully from a code perspective, we can accommodate some type of cover above that stair for snow protection. And I guess the other part is really to incorporate a landscaping plan that so we can really understand what the makeup of the site from a landscaping perspective, and I guess extending the sidewalk on Reisterstown Road so that we don't have the planting area, I guess, adjacent to the front facade. I guess is there anything else that I'm missing?
Well, just 2 things. One is we need to be clear about if that could be done as an administrative review by staff rather than return to the DRP. My vote would be yes. I don't know if any other panel members feel otherwise. Please speak now if you feel like it should return.
So I agree. I guess the one question I had for James was he mentioned the bike racks moving, but is the discussion the staircase moving?
That was my take on it, that, well, make sure that there's not a conflict between those and then possibly look at the stair moving to the rear rather than the bike racks moving to the rear.
Oh, well, I guess I would comply with that. I would think to restudy the location of that exterior stair would be paramount. So that, I mean, unless anyone else really rejects that's definitely on the table.
Okay.
May I make a comment, if that's okay?
Yes. I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is
sorry. Is Donnie, Yes, but I make, if it moves into, explanation rather than just kind of a response, I might cut you off, but go ahead.
Feel free to cut me off.
Okay.
The stairs is not required by code. It was just there as a convenient stair. I'm happy to get rid of it if we even need to. But if it does remain, I'm happy to look into the covered pieces or perhaps even cover it with brick just so it feels a little more integrated and not as tacked on. And then the bike rack is very flexible with where it can go. I'm happy to locate it in a place that works, and is convenient.
That sounds great. Thank you for that input. That is helpful to know. Okay, so James, do you want to just kind of, I think, I didn't hear any objections, so I think this can approve with conditions and can be reviewed by staff administratively, correct?
I would say it can be approved with conditions and reviewed by the staff administratively. Yes.
Great. Okay. And then just to summarize for everyone before we move, we talked about James made the motion to have the front facade remain as shown with the black lower one-story port or the dark gray brick lower portion, the window facade, the main two-story facade as is with the punched openings as they are. Look at removing the side stair. I would just say expanding the hardscape in front of the boutique and making sure that a detailed landscape plan is submitted, meeting the county's comments. I think that's the motion on the table. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, I think James beat you, Kelly, so I'm going to go with James second. So with that motion on the table, just before we vote this time, I'll just ask the county planning staff, any need to clarify any of those points before we move to vote?
I don't think James can make the motion and second.
Oh, sorry, he did. So you're right. Sorry, Kelly's got it then. Kelly's the second.
It
Good
was
point.
It was Donald
Oh.
who did it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let the record show. Donald second.
Stephanie, can I clarify if the applicant needs to comply with the staff report comments, or you're just making separate comments or conditions?
It was a conditional approval to comply with the comments that Mr. Stevens made in addition to the staff report comments. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think it should include the staff report comments.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement with that. Okay, so with that clarified, I will move to a vote. Those in favor on the panel, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so that is unanimous. Thank you. Have approval with conditions, staff review. So thank you for that presentation. And with that, we will move on to item number 3, which is the 4100 Maple Avenue Forge Overlook, which is returning to us. So I see the applicants on screen. Thank you. Anybody speaking, I would ask that you again turn on your cameras. Since we are familiar with the project, please, limit the presentation to the responses to the previous panel comments and staff comments. And with that, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So we are back here for our third time, and we are pleased to present you with our updated package. I will go through the DRP conditions from the January 11th meeting and use that as an outline as we go through the presentation. The first condition was to comply with all recommendations and conditions of the staff report from that meeting. I'll get to that in a moment. The second was to restudy the public amenity space, including retaining walls and grading details. So we have provided a detailed grading study that outlines retaining walls, tops and bottom of walls, steps, ADA accessibilities, etc. So that has been included with our submission. The next condition was identifying the 2,500 square feet of open space between buildings C and D located near the dumpsters should be centrally located. So Marta, I'm not sure if you're able to share your screen at this point. Just want to open up a few slides to talk to. But if you go to page, I guess on pattern book one, or part 1 to page 39. And then specifically talking to this is the, and watch you slip in there, the amenity space to the east of building D. And that has been updated. We provided additional screening between the parking lot. Yeah, 39, awesome, thank you. Additional screening between the parking lot there on the top and the amenity area. Additionally, we have moved that dumpster that was previously located just above this area to another location on site further away from this amenity area. Switch comment 4 was comment related to the gable entry on all 4 of them, what I'll call the multifamily buildings. Wanted to be the comment was to make that brick, not vinyl. So on page 64, you don't have to flip to this, but the keynotes have been updated to identify a thin brick veneer on those keynotes. Comment 5 was to provide increased site lighting to promote safety measures. So Marta, if you would please turn to page 43 of the pattern book. And when she gets there, perfect, thank you. This exhibit identifies the light locations for both street lights, parking lot lights, as well as the amenity areas. A formal lighting plan will be processed as part of the development process, phase 2 plans that will be processed with the county for review. We have added a note to indicate that photometric design will be provided to meet or exceed the Baltimore County lighting standards. Safety is paramount for our residents. Comment 6, the comment was generally noted to provide more centralized green spaces throughout the site. Marta, if you could turn to page 24, excuse me. So when she gets there, this is an exhibit that provides an overview of the open space and amenity areas provided on the property. So the open space in many areas can't be located in more centralized locations throughout the site because there's existing topography, there's environmental features, environmental buffers that really surround this property, and we've tried to highlight that on this exhibit. What we are now proposing is 6.5 acres of open space with this purpose-built student housing community. Those open space areas will include pathways to enjoy the environmental features. Additionally, we'll have the approximately 2.28 acres of the amenity spaces in the 3 areas that we've previously discussed. And just wanted to note that 6.5 acres and the 0.28 acres is in addition to 4.5 acres that is already being provided on the approved townhome community part of phase 1 of this on the property. Comment number 7 is to provide grading information related to the building entries. And as I mentioned previously, we have provided a detailed grading analysis and plan to show accessibility at all building entrances. Comment 8, provide necessary ramps between buildings A and B and the open spaces between C and D. As I mentioned, detailed grading study has been provided that identifies that accessibility and those connections. Comment 9, if you could, Marta, turn to page 49. This comment was lead walkways and stairs should be provided between each townhouse unit and street. So this is related to the 11 townhomes there on what I'll call the right side, or the east side of what is known as Avalon Ridge Boulevard, which is that spine road that goes right up the middle of the southern portion of the community. We have evaluated that. We initially at last meeting only had 1 connection from those homes down to the public sidewalk along the road. We've added 2 additional, one at both the top and the bottom. There's topographic changes there. So rather than providing us 11 different separate stairways, we are proposing 3 stairways to allow for connectivity and allow residents to go in any direction that they wish to walk. If you turn to page 29, please, Marta. This comment, comment 10, notes that the bike rack should be located properly on site and shown clearly on the plans. There should be adequate bike racks provided. So this exhibit shows the location of the 4 bike racks that we are proposing, one at the entrance to each of the 4 multifamily buildings. Comment 11, the proposed plan should be updated to ensure sidewalks and connected crosswalks. The sidewalk connections, crosswalks have all been added to the plans. Comment 12 was to provide connectivity for pedestrians and bicycle activity. If you could turn to page 20, back to page 24, we'll start there on this one. I noticed a focus of the panel. So again, this is the exhibit you saw earlier, but both pedestrian and bicycle connectivity have been highlighted on this plan. The pathways, the sidewalks, and that connectivity is all shown here on the various colors that are represented. Additionally, if you could do, Marta, go to pages, start at page 25. Our traffic engineer evaluated pedestrian, bicycle, and transit travel from the proposed community to the UMBC campus. Starting with page 25, it identifies existing and bike routes that have already been established. If you could switch to the next page, Marta. This identifies transit routes and stops between the 2 properties. Next page. Pedestrian routes identified on this one. And finally, page 28. Potential bike routes. So for pedestrian and bicycle travel, we did identify 3 routes, all of which are slightly over 2 miles in distance. The most direct route that we've identified between the community and the UMBC campus uses Ridge Avenue to Carville and Oregon Avenue to East Drive and then to Poplar Avenue. This does provide a connected sidewalk system and makes the best use of signed bicycle routes that are in place. UMBC Transit also provides several stops between the community and the campus, and there are 3 bus stops proposed internal to the community. And if you could just go to page 29, the next page real quick. This exhibit further illustrates the bicycle connectivity options within inside the community to get over to that Ridge Avenue connection that ultimately then would lead to the UMBC campus. One through the pathway system there, and I'll call it the lower left, and then the other utilizing the roadway system that will be lit for nighttime travel there up off of Maple Avenue. The comment 13 was to provide recreational amenities in the proposed open space. So again, going back to page 24, we don't have to flip back, but just an overview, we are providing those open space amenity areas, provided that additional 6.5 acres of open space with this development, provided connectivity options throughout the development through the pathways in those open space. If you could turn to page 33. You're doing awesome. Thanks, Marta. This is an overview of the 3 amenity areas, and then the subsequent pages 34 through 40 further detail those amenity areas and are provided in the pattern book. I'll let Marta slowly flip through those. Just awesome. Thank you, Marta. And then the final condition, number 14 from the panel meeting on on January 11th, was to restudy the staggering of the townhomes. And we did look at this and decided that the staggering of the townhomes that we are proposing is really to be consistent with the first phase of the development. Those townhomes, those 182 townhomes that have been approved by the LJ, have that staggering and want to maintain that consistency of the townhome elevations and the cohesive architectural presence. So that's the 14 conditions. Staff did have a staff report from January 11th, and I'll try to quickly touch on these. Several of them are repeats. So the first one was related to site design, and this is really the question of how will purpose-built student housing be regulated? So I know this has been a recurring topic, so I want to read our response, or at least the first paragraph of our response, just to make sure I get this one right for everyone. So Initial conversations with UMBC about this project have confirmed a need for and interest in some faculty being accommodated within the project. The applicant honestly believed that I'll call it the HIA moving forward with Halthorpe Improvement Association would be in favor of having the university faculty living within this purpose-built student housing project, and contemplated a specific section of the project that may be designed targeted primarily to serve faculty. To be clear, however, the concept of having any specific product or area specifically dedicated or planned for faculty housing was completely abandoned by the applicant after the initial DRP meeting, after hearing the feedback from the HIA. Notwithstanding that fact, that the ultimate determination of whether the faculty may also qualify to live within the project as resident counselors or advisors, which would ultimately be determined by the ALJ, the applicant does not object to the DRP imposing a condition of approval that all units and areas in the proposed purpose-built student housing, so this community we're looking at tonight, be for undergraduate and graduate students. So moving on to the form and image recommendations or comments from staff report. The first was to provide accurate elevations on and cross sections and perspectives of the 4 multifamily buildings. Those have been provided. They are provided on pages 51 and 52 of the pattern book. The second comment is a repeat of the purpose-built student housing use restriction. Switching to open space and landscape design, there's two conditions under that in the staff report. The first was to label and provide amenity open space areas with proposed development specific to buildings C and D and the townhome area to the north. So I just want to note here that comment came out again before the January 11th meeting. Heading into that meeting, between the first DRP meeting and the second meeting, we did add additional amenity space. So 2 additional amenity spaces were added. One was located between C and D, the other located to the east of D. Again, we're not there prior to the second meeting. Additionally, the area between A and B was increased in size by 3,000 square feet. And additionally, site furnishings and other details were further provided. Again, that is in addition to now the 6.5 acres of open space with pathways that we are proposing. And the second comment under that section was top and bottom wall elevations to be provided for all retaining walls. And as I mentioned, we've provided that detail on a supplemental grading plan that was provided. Next section is street parking and circulation. The first comment under that was clarify if bicycle storage facilities are being provided and where. So as I previously mentioned, there are 4 locations, one at each entrance to the 4 multifamily buildings. The second was to clarify the project description and that we had incorrectly identified only 1 bus stop being proposed in that narrative. There are 3 locations being proposed. All 3 of those locations have bus shelters proposed as well. Comment 3 was related to complete streets, and I think this is part of the discussion at the panel meeting in January. And the project does comply with street design guidelines outlined by the county's complete streets policy. It is anticipated that the Avalon Ridge Boulevard, so that main spine road coming off US 1, will have approximately 2,500, average daily trips between the purpose-built student housing and the 182 townhomes under phase 1. Based on that volume of traffic, Avalon Ridge Boulevard is a local street, and with that, per the complete streets policy, a local street should provide 5-foot wide sidewalks on both sides of the street and does not require a bike lane. So that is what we are proposing there along Avalon Ridge Boulevard, that main spine up through the southern section. Comment 4 is to provide sidewalks along Washington Boulevard. As we previously discussed on the January meeting, SHA's first review and talking with them, no sidewalks have been requested. We'll continue to work with them in the event that they do require those. And that's again along US 1, the Washington Boulevard frontage. Comment 5 was to provide required parking calculations. So this one's a little bit of a legalese and don't want to get too much into the details here, but in short, purpose-built student housing is not identified in the zoning regulations under section 409 as a use. Therefore, it doesn't identify a parking requirement. Understanding that we thought the HIA would have parking concerns as they had in the first phase, and I think continued to voice during the first two meetings, or at least the first meeting here with the panel for this project. We evaluated the parking as though it were a apartment building garden, as what section 409 identifies as a apartment building, garden apartment building, that section of the code in section 409. So with that, we are estimating that the parking required per that section, if the ALJ agrees with that determination, would be 486 parking spaces. We are proposing a bit more, again, hearing that the HIA is concerned with parking, and are proposing 508 total spaces. So again, 486 required, based on our initial opinion, 508 proposed. We also understand that as we work through the design process, that some spaces may be lost for any stormwater, landscaping, other pieces as agencies get the chance to review this. We also, should the DRP want to make a recommendation to the ALJ that the required parking be reduced, that's entirely up to the panel. But we are currently proposing enough parking to address that anticipated continued parking concern that HIA may raise. The next section, there's only two more, so I appreciate everybody bearing with this. Signage and lighting. First comment is clarify where lighting locations are identified. I think we already talked that tonight. Second, provide materials and the height and dimension of the proposed entrance sign. So Marta, I think is the last page I'm going to ask you to flip to. If you could go to, I think it's page 30, and then 31 and 32. Page 30 shows the monument locations and a plan view. Awesome. And then 31 and 32 further detail those monument signs, providing heights and the details requested in that comment. So if you go to 31 and 32, Marta, just slowly. Thank you. And then finally, the two architectural design requirements. Provide accurate elevations for buildings A, B, C, and D. I've already mentioned those are provided in pages 51 and 52. And then finally, the use restriction for faculty was a recurring comment. And I already touched on that. So with that, that's the end of the comments and conditions from both staff and panel. We do appreciate your time. I know that was a lot. Our team did put a lot of effort into this and preparing a complete package. We think, in it's our opinion, we addressed the prior conditions and recommendations. I obviously didn't flip through all 120 pages of the pattern book, but I trust the panelists have, and I'm here to answer any questions, and the team's here to answer any questions you might have. And to close, we do respectfully request your approval or conditional approval so that we can move forward and continue to work through the additional details related to this community with the respective county agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. And with that, we will go through the staff report. I guess, Marta, maybe I can also ask you to summarize, and we kind of went through a point by point in the response, and I thank you to have done that. If you can go through, and then because we will allow you to come back up as the applicant team to respond to any further comments, I would ask that you only do that if there's new and additional information. Marta?
Yes, thank you, Cecily. So I will start with site design. Staff recommends approval subject to the following condition. Provide a diagram to demonstrate how the proposed sidewalks and paths comply with the requirements. For the form and image, staff recommends approval subject to the following condition. Provide accurate elevation, cross sections, and perspectives for each proposed townhome group to properly portray how the changes in grade throughout the proposed development will be represented. Open space and landscape design, staff recommends approval. Again, we're requesting to provide a diagram to demonstrate how the proposed access to all the amenity spaces meet ADA requirements. For streets, parking, and circulations, staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. Number one, show and label on the site plan all three proposed bus shelters and provide crosswalk to all of them. Number 2, provide a diagram to demonstrate how the proposed access to all the amenity spaces meet ADA requirements. Number 3, provide a diagram to demonstrate how the proposed sidewalks meet ADA requirements. Signage and lighting, staff recommends approval. And architectural design, staff defers approval of the architectural design to the DRP subject to the following condition. Provide accurate elevations, cross sections, and perspectives for each proposed townhome group to demonstrate the changes in grade of the topography to be able to make a proper evaluation of the proposed architectural design. And final recommendation, staff defers approval of the porch overlook project to the DRP subjects that all of the above comments are properly and successfully addressed by the applicant. And this concludes our staff report. Thank you, Cecily.
Thank you, Marta. So before I open it up and ask if there are folks signed up, which I know there are, I just want to remind people that what the DRP's purview is. If you weren't here at the beginning, just remember that zoning, setbacks, stormwater management, traffic are not part of our purview. So we would ask that you avoid comments addressing those items. Those will be reviewed by other agencies at a future date. We are really looking at, all of these aesthetics, the landscape, recreational open space, those types of items, not those, we'll call them nuts and bolts, but zoning, setbacks, stormwater management, traffic. So with that, I'll just additionally remind people that as an individual, you have 2 minutes to speak. If you're representing a group, HOA or other entity, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. And with that, I will ask planning staff to move on to the community comments.
Yes. This is Jennifer. I will go ahead and let you know who each speaker is, and beginning with Mr. McCullough, who is speaking on behalf of the Hale Floor Improvement Association, so he will get 5 minutes. And he needs to be unmuted as Oscar Connolly, if you're able to unmute.
Marta will have to do it. I
Yeah.
gave her the host.
Yes, I will try to do that. Just give me a second. Mr. McAuliffe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How you doing, Marta?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so
Good.
much. Just please give me a second because I would like to start my timer before you start speaking, so you will know how much time you have left.
Okay.
Can you see my timer?
I do.
Perfect. So when you're ready, just let me know, and let me know if this is the correct diagram that you would like to refer to.
Yes, that is the correct diagram.
Okay, so your time is up, so please go ahead.
Okay. My name is Michael McAuliffe, representing the Halethorpe Improvement Association. Though slightly improved, this third iteration still possesses design elements that concern us, many of them carrying through from the first submission. First concern, open space and amenities. A close look at the open space topography presented now shows that most of it is very steep terrain and is not very usable, with much of it on a 30% to 50% grade. That's much steeper than the 15% average maximum allowed by regulation. The developer has proposed these areas as open space only because they're too steep to build on. In other words, they're unusable scraps. These 6 acres have been of little use to the developer until now. Now that he is trying to pass them off as real open space, they will be of little use to the students as well. As the plan shows, all 6 acres will simply remain as brush and bramble, just like most of the open space in phase 1, virtually unimproved. This entire project, phase 1 and phase 2, lack real open spaces, spaces that are centrally located and serve as social gathering areas for the roughly 1,000 residents who will live here. This project needs open space like the Baltimore County Master Plan and the Open Space Manual stipulate. We recommend that all the areas where townhouses are proposed be deemed open space because they are the only areas flat enough to be utilized for recreation, ball playing, frisbee throwing, etc. Activities that college students like to do in between studying. A good rule of thumb is this: if it's too steep to build on, it's too steep for open space. These 6 acres certainly do not qualify as real open space. The courtyard amenity, however, is nice. This project needs more of the same. HIA also expressly opposes the developer being allowed to buy open space credits for this project. Open space needs to stay here in this community, in this project. Our second concern, single-family townhouses. Bill 6121, named Purpose-Built Student Housing, stipulates that this type of housing be, quote, designed for primary purpose of housing students, both undergraduate and graduate, and resident counselors or advisors. The Baltimore County zoning regulation definition for dormitories, also known as on-campus student housing, stipulates the exact same thing. In other words, all student housing, whether on campus or off campus, is designated for student living only. Neither on campus nor off campus student housing is meant for faculty residence. The developer has been and still is trying to create, I believe he still is, trying to create a false notion that faculty is permitted to live in purpose-built student housing. But please don't be fooled by this maneuver. This is just a ruse to get houses built on the manufacturing light zone property that would not be permitted through the normal process. Resident counselors and advisors, by definition, are generally college juniors or seniors who live in a dormitory and act as trained counselors and advisors to their peers. Although the university pays them a stipend, they are not faculty. They are students. Single-family houses proposed in this plan have the exact same floor plan as single-family townhouses in phase 1. Single-family townhouses are designed for families, as their name applies, not students. The houses should not be included in any approved plan. The townhouses are non-conforming to the Baltimore County zoning regulation and should be nixed for that reason alone. So another concern, parking. The upper section shows 31 townhouses consisting of 124 bedrooms in total, but they have only 62 parking spaces. That's 4 bedrooms per house with only 2 parking spaces per house. No overflow parking spaces or no on-street parking. This is another good reason to not approve this plan. Also, high retaining walls. Miners Way, the dead end, shows 18-foot high walls at the rear of some of the backyards. Walls this high are a bad design element, and some of the property being held up by these walls drop as much as 14 feet. That's bad design on top of bad design. Many of these yards require extreme dirt infill just to keep the drop above 14 feet. That's just another bad design element.
Mr. McAuliffe, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you for that time. And one last comment, not about this, but about county policy. These virtual meetings, a lot of people can't get on. I had trouble even getting on myself. And these need to go back to hybrid. And I'm going to be talking to the county executive about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we move on to other community members, I'll just note again, zoning issues, setback issues, stormwater management. I know people are, want to mention them. You're welcome to, but just know the panel is, we don't have any authority or purview over that. So please, if please keep your comments to items that are within our purview. That will be a good use of our time. So with that, Jennifer, can you?
Did I speak on any of those items I weren't supposed to? I just want to make sure.
It's okay. It's okay. There was it forayed into that area, but But that's you're speaking on the Hillthorpe Association. So thank you for bringing to light the community's concerns. Jennifer, Marta, do you have the next speaker?
Yes, Tiffany Wiseman, who will have 2 minutes to speak.
Let me find,
She's on the attendee list.
yes, I see someone was named Tiffany. Just a minute, just a second, please. Tiffany, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Just a second, let me try to start the timer and you will have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, let me know when you're ready and I will start the timer.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have basically a lot of the same concerns that Mike mentioned about the open space, so I'm not really going to repeat it. It's really not usable open space, and they're really not providing more as they're making it sound. It may be as far as acreage, but not usable space. And another thing, as far as the sidewalks goes, there should be some kind of grass or planting space between the sidewalks and parking spaces around buildings A, B, C, and D to prevent like the parked cars from impeding on the sidewalks. I don't see any of that implemented on the plans. In fact, I don't see much change from the last 2 times we were here, but ADA ramps. And he did mention something about connectivity from Washington Boulevard. They will use it to bike out of the community down Washington Boulevard onto Ridge. There's no way to bike from out Avalon Ridge. When he said for himself, there's no bike path at all going to be incorporated on Avalon Ridge Road, which is the main road leading on to Washington Boulevard. If there was a bike, even if there was a bike route there on Avalon Ridge, just no way to bike along Washington Boulevard down to Ridge. For one, coming out of Ridge on the Washington Boulevard is nothing but a blind spot around a curb. So that's just waiting to be an accident, somebody hitting a pedestrian. There's no way to bike out of that community from Avalon Ridge down Washington Boulevard to go to Ridge Avenue, down to Carvel, down to Popular, whatever way he was explaining, which sounds like a really long bikeable way to get the UMBC. So that part of it is definitely, basically nothing has changed in my eyes from what I reviewed, and even what he spoke today. All I heard was reasons why they can't implement what you guys recommended into the plans. There was nothing changed from the last time. So, I mean, that's really all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the list, I have Beth Lefebvre.
Beth Lefebvre, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a second, let me start the timer.
Okay.
Let me know when you are ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, great. I start the timer now.
Okay. Hi, my name is Beth Lefebvre. I've lived in Hillthorpe since 2007. I do want to echo a lot of what Mike and Tiffany have discussed. But in addition, I would like to really emphasize the parking, bikes, and pedestrian. I realize that the developer has added some parking spaces, but is really not enough. We know, households have at least 2 cars per household. Many of the streets, for people who are not familiar with Hillthorpe, are very old. They're narrow. They do not have sidewalks. They do not have shoulders. So pedestrian traffic, I walk my dog every day. You are in the street. So that is a concern, I think, for a lot of people here, that parking is going to end up in those areas, and that, there really isn't a mechanism for people to get from one place to another safely. Also just want to touch on the trees. I know that the county has identified priorities with keeping trees. They've encouraged tree planting. They've given away trees to residents. But, you know, this project proposes to get rid of some great old growth trees, which we know are irreplaceable. We can't just ask people to plant new ones and have the same exact replication. You know, it's vital to wildlife. It's also vital to maintain the character. I mean, this is an older town. So, you know, I would really ask the board to take into consideration some of these things that are safety issues, as well as just things that would help us maintain the type of place that we move to and that, you know, we're trying to maintain for ourselves. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
The next person I have is Shannon F.
We have two Shannons.
Shannon
S.
F, as in Fred.
Okay, I'm looking. Thank you. Shannon, can you hear us? You are unmuted
Yes.
now.
Yes, Marta, I can hear you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you unmuting me. I will appreciate you starting the clock. Thank you.
Okay, I just started. The floor is yours.
10-4, thank you. I definitely echo Mike, Tiffany, and Beth's and many of the community members' concerns. We've had a long-term relationship with Mr. Levy and his team, and we do appreciate them working with our requests. Some other concerns I had was traffic concerns. That there's been no traffic study performed for phase 2. One's definitely needed. Also, management plan. There's no management plan that's been submitted yet, as the BCZR requires. There's supposed to be a plan submitted and reviewed before approval, as Bill 6121 states. We'd like to see that. Seeing that a plan requirement that every student residing here must be currently enrolled in a university full time. The environmental impact, like Beth highlighted, is there's 25 specimen trees on the phase 2 property and proposed to be removed. That's definitely a concern for our community. We have worked hard to do tree plantings with the county and have been successful at that. And we are now trying to remove specimen trees. So an EPS variance needs to be requested. School overcrowding is another issue. If the 42 townhouses on this plan were to be approved for faculty and their families, I stress the word faculty, children would no doubt accompany them, right? So they would be accompanied seats in our local schools. A school impact study needs to be conducted, and sidewalks, as previously mentioned, there should be grass planting between the sidewalks and parking spaces around buildings A, B, C, and D to prevent parked cars from impeding the sidewalks. And lastly, I think we've mentioned this multiple times, is UMBC's lack of input. I'm hearing that they...
Time is up.
Time is
Okay, the plan shows UMBC bus routes serving the student housing, but the developer has yet to bring UMBC to the discussion. We have yet to hear from UMBC at these DRP meetings. Has UMBC been approached, and what is their input? Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I do feel compelled that I need to jump back in here. Traffic, stormwater management are not under the purview of the DRP. I know these are major concerns, but I want to make sure that the citizens know, the community knows that the DRP is not the entity that can respond to those issues. So I know those are concerns for the community, but we don't have any purview to review. We're not charged with reviewing that, and we certainly don't have any input on those measures. Just remember, if you can focus your comments on things that we can have an impact on, that would serve us. Thank you.
next on the list is Sarah Harmon.
I'm looking. I don't think I see.
She's right on the list that I see. She's right under Rose Tatum, Sarah Harmon.
Yes. No, just a second. I'm looking. Yes, I found it. Thank you, Jen. Miss Herman, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Let me start the timer and I will let you know when. Okay, you can speak now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for your time tonight. I think the sentiments of the neighborhood are very similar in that this project, we're not against the project, but I think the scope of the project seems too big for the assets that the neighborhood can handle. And I think the problem with the parking, yes, you mentioned we're not supposed to mention traffic, but the green space, the trees, the wildlife, this is the only freestanding wildlife area in Halethorpe proper, and that's going to go away. Like, this project's going to get rid of the major deer population that we have, and that's the only green space left in Halethorpe proper. So I think combining all of those things together between the parking and the green space and the traffic, if we could have a fewer units, more parking, more green space for the students and wildlife, I think everybody would be happy. And then just to follow up on the student housing portion, yes, having UMBC input would be phenomenal. How do you regulate students living in the housing? How do you require that they show you transcripts? When they graduate, do they get kicked out? How does that work? How do you insulate it to make sure that it's only for students? Not to mention students bringing in friends and other people to live with them. So I'm really curious. There's really no way to regulate who will be living in those apartments. If you even label them as students, there's no way to enforce that. So again, shrinking the project by whatever percentage I think would make everybody happy. More green space, more parking, and how to enforce the student housing. Thank you.
Okay, I have a request for a Jack Lancaster to speak, which, Brett, you will have to unmute Oscar Connolly again because he is with Mr. McCullough. Mr. Lancaster, you'll get 2 minutes. Or Marta, please unmute Oscar Connolly.
I'm looking. Okay, you are unmuted, and let me start the timer. Just a second, please. Okay, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Jack Lancaster. I've lived in Halethorpe for 30 years. I have concerns about what I saw on this plan as bike paths, but these roads around here won't handle any bike paths. There's nowhere on Washington Boulevard to have a bike path. I don't know if these are projects for the future or what. Also, I'm concerned about cutting down of trees. We need these trees to be maintained. And also, I would like to go back to the other person who spoke before me. How are you going to maintain that these apartment houses are strictly inhabited by UMBC personnel and not rented out to just public people when they have an opening? That's all I've got. Thank you.
Yeah, you can. Okay, he's finished.
Oh, I thought I was done.
Yep. Thank you for letting Jack speak.
That is the that's all I have requested to speak for this project.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Marta.
Successfully, I just would like to add that we also received written comments via email prior to this DLP meeting, which we shared with the JP members. It's one is from Mr. Michael McCullough. He also spoke this evening, and the other one is from Tracy Gleaser.
Whether to approve or disapprove.
Thank you. Okay, so as we move in to the panel's discussion, Marta, can if folks were unmuted, can you mute them now just so we don't have the crossover? So, you know, and I just before we start into the panel discussion, I just want to say, you know, building on my comment to the community, stay involved. There's still, you know, time to voice the concerns as you move through the process and other agencies review it. So just to clarify, we're not trying to dismiss it. We're just letting you know that we don't have authority over those particular issues. We certainly understand the concerns, and you know, please exercise your rights as this proceeds. So some of the APFO, school, et cetera, will be in the future. Yes, Jen?
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I do have an individual that said that they were raising their hand. I was trying to address why she had her hand raised in the comment and she didn't respond. She would like it to.
Absolutely.
Her name is Sue. I don't know her last name. So Marta, if you could unmute Sue.
I'm looking.
And give her 2 minutes.
Just a second, I'm looking. Yes, I think I found it. Sue, you have just a second. I will start my timer.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. I didn't see any comments.
So the floor is yours. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
I've been a resident of Halethorpe here for 25 years, and I really just am here to voice my support for all of the concerns that have been raised by the Halethorpe Improvement Association. I know they've been working hard and studying the blueprints and really coming up with great suggestions, and I think that those have been well articulated today. And I really did just want to show solidarity for the concerns that they have, as so many of us. We really are a community, and we've lived here for a long time, and we really do care about what our new neighbors are going to look like and how those buildings are designed and the impact on our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have another individual who's raised their hand, and you know, they're supposed to be in the chat, so.
We'll go one more, Jen, and then I think we need to move to the panel discussion, but absolutely.
Beverly Thomas, Marta. Beverly Thomas. There you go.
Can you hear us? Beverly Thomas.
I'm not unmuted. I'm not unmuted, but I also have a phone.
No, you are unmuted now.
Can you hear me now?
Can we hear? Yes.
Can you hear? Let me speak on the phone because I'm not unmuted. I don't think I'm unmuted.
She's on here twice, Marta. Try the other one.
The other one? Okay. How about now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I did sign up to speak. And I just want to say that I support HIA's concerns and the people who spoke tonight. I am concerned about keeping the trees, if that's possible. I had other concerns a couple months ago. I had a concern that if UMBC later decided to make other arrangements for students, what would happen to this project? And I was also concerned about the safety and the crime issues for that area, plus the rest of Halethorpe and Arbutus. And I defer to HIA because they are more involved in the details. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Oh, I also like to say that my parents moved here in 1952. So we've been residents since then, and thank you.
That's
Thank you.
Leslie.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for the input. So we're gonna, before we move on to the panel discussion, I want to let my fellow members know that we met with the applicant and county staff as an interim, as a measure to help, get on the same page and move this forward, make sure the comments were clear, make sure, we understood responses, and talk a little bit about, the amount of information, what to share as we moved into this third round. So we made sure that, the applicant, as you've seen, has done some additional studies to show connectivity, to clearly describe open space, to add open space. So I think they have shared with us today, but for those of you, who, that has been about a month and a half or 2 months since you've seen this, feel free to ask questions that clarify that. But I hope that these exhibits that they've prepared in the interim and the responses from other consultants that they've engaged have helped to clarify some of the issues that we brought forward at the last meeting. So with that being said,
Sorry.
yes, sorry.
Jennifer.
Is that Jennifer? Yes, go ahead.
Can I just make one comment before we get into the panel's comments?
Yes.
And that is, as a development review chief for planning department, I wanted everybody to understand that, and we've been talking about this at each meeting, that the DRP is one step in the development process for this property. This plan, as phase 2 of an overall property, will have to go back for a material amendment to an originally approved development plan, which will have a review by the county agencies on many of the matters that the community spoke to tonight regarding issues that the DRP does not reside over. So the community will have another opportunity to have their concerns heard by the administrative law judge. So just a reminder to keep, that in mind as you're going through your comments, and that the regulatory issues will be reported on at the development phase, not at the DRP.
Okay, thank you, Jen. So with that, all of those added instructions and information, let's see, let's go with Mr. Khan to start us off.
Thank you. There are a lot of things, I guess we don't have a lot to talk about with some of these issues, but I would say one thing that concerns me is the conversation about the specimen trees and their location, and identifying those with respect to decisions that have been made about the building placement. I think that it's very reasonable to know where those are and try to incorporate them to the fullest extent possible in the development plan. I'm also curious whether there's any responsibility in these areas that are open space in terms of any kind of management of those spaces, in terms of cleaning them out to make them more accessible, even if the grades are steeper, as opposed to areas that might not meet reasonable standards for folks to get in there and spend some time anyway. Other than that, and agree with the staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Matt, do you want to go next?
Sure, Cecily. I appreciate the supplemental grading information. I think that's helpful to understand how the site is working. It would have been very helpful to see either renderings or site sections of these open spaces. It's still very difficult to understand kind of the relationships of these elements. And I was wondering if the applicant could provide more detail on the materiality of the walls. There still are significant walls and significant heights and lengths of walls, but it's unclear what the material of those walls will be. So I'm not sure if they could answer that real quick.
Yeah, I know, again, we had, it's quite a lengthy submission, so I will ask the applicant if you have information on that to direct us to the particular page that shows that. I mean, I know there are 2D renderings and some 3D renderings that show some of that open space. I don't know if you have a material for the wall. I can't recall that myself, so if you could jump in here on that question, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So I'm unmuted. Yep. So for the first part, pages, the amenity space details and renderings, I think it's, just looking over here, I think it's pages starting at page 33 and proceeding through page 40. Yeah, 40. Provide renderings and precedent images related to what those spaces will look like. Again, colored images, site furnishings, potential programming areas within that, those three, again, amenity areas. Related to the question on the materiality of the walls, and I assume you're talking retaining walls there, Matt. Those we would expect to be a MSE wall, style wall. Haven't picked out colors, to be honest with you. It's certainly something that we can discuss, but that would be the style that we would anticipate.
Thank you. Matt, further comments, questions?
I think that's it for me. Thanks, Cecily.
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
Yep. My comments echo everybody else. I appreciate the detailed response to the staff and the panel comments. They were very thorough. I appreciate the condition of approved tenants or applicants to the homes themselves as being undergraduate and having the use restriction. So that was addressed as well. I echo what you also said, Cecily. I absolutely appreciate all the community's comments, but it seems more on the zoning concerned aspect of it. And those would be my comments.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Mr. Sharma?
I would go with the staff report, which is very detailed and thorough. At the same time, I would like to acknowledge the developer has made efforts to address the comments, but the community is concerned within the purview of this committee. They need to be addressed also.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sharma. And James, Mr. Stevens?
Thank you. In looking at this, I guess I'm in total agreement with the materials that is being expressed on the buildings A, B, C, and D, the thin brick on the cable roof and veneer brick on everything else on the buildings. I'm happy to see the site amenities between A and B and C and D have increased, and just completely ecstatic about the relocation of the dumpster enclosure, especially the one that was on the east of building D, that's no longer there. So that makes a very pleasant site amenity in that area. I mean, outside of that, I'm in total agreement with the staff report and that's really it, as far as my comments.
Thank you, James. And I'll kind of round out the comments here and say, obviously I had the chance to talk through some of the issues. Some of my previous concerns were addressed, in terms of the access to the front of the townhouses. I think the solution, although we don't have sidewalks, lead walks coming out of every townhouse, I think that the response is better, that they work with grades and you have adequate connections where crosswalks are, the connectivity both with the the bus stops on sidewalks to those on site, the connections of site. Sorry, Mr. Stevens, can you mute? Sorry, we're getting some feedback. That the bus stops are the connections for two sidewalks to those bus stops as well as crosswalks. And then I will say that I think the applicant has done a good job of managing and adding to the open space that they have on site, addressing some of the connectivity. Of course, there are, MDE approvals that need to be met beyond this stage. I do think that there are connections to outside areas, which of course the applicant doesn't control, but I think they've shown on site, and it has improved through these conversations and reviews and responses, that everything within their site area has been connected to the extent possible. I know that was my major concern. The staggering of the townhouse facades was my comment. I do think they were, I think, although I'd like to push back, I think that the response that it is compatible with not only the phase one of this project, but likely the other context in the neighborhood is accurate. So I will give on that one. And I think they have detailed the open spaces to the extent possible. So I think they've, worked through a lot of our concerns over this time. I have faith in the county to go through the rest of the APFO and the zoning concerns, as well as, managing. I do think it needs to be managed. Some structure needs to be put in place to understand how, there is a limitation that this is purpose-built for students, and that there would be some mechanism put in place to manage and administer that. So I put that in the hands of the county moving forward. Beyond that, I think, the other details provided in terms of additional elevations, cross sections, study of connections offsite have all been met. So, I'm satisfied that they've done as much as they can within our purview to meet our concerns. So with all that said, leading up to that, is there a brave soul who can make a motion? And please, again, state if this can, approved with conditions, it needs to return, and how, if approved with conditions, if that can be managed by planning staff moving forward. Volunteer? Matt, I'm going to see if I can tag you, since I see you on screen and you're the first one I see. I'm going to say, please take a shot at making a motion. We can, always have further discussion and input.
I would recommend to approve per the conditions of the staff report.
And then to be reviewed administratively by staff?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, I do think that covers the remaining concerns that I heard people voice. I will, I don't know if this is appropriate or not. Jen, you can just advise if not, but would ask that the county work with the applicant to come up with a way to monitor and administer the that the housing is occupied by students, either undergrad or graduate.
Required per the bill.
Okay,
and they
very
have
good.
to prepare some management plan to the director of permits, approvals, and inspections.
Perfect. Okay, so I don't think we need to add that to the motion on the table. Is there any further discussion by anyone on the panel?
Is it understood that part of the county process will deal with these maturities?
They absolutely will have to. That will be under the purview of the Department of Environmental Protection and Sustainability, as well as the county landscape architect.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry?
I would second the motion.
Okay, if I think that's very clear. I mean, we don't have any other conditions, so I think we can move to a vote. All of those in favor with the motion, please say aye.
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 Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's been thank you for returning, applicant. Thank you for the added information. Thank you, community, and stay involved. And with that, we can move on to the fourth item this evening, which is the Milford Mill Shopping Center. It's under the Liberty Road Commercial Review Area. With that,
Cecily, can we take a very quick break?
That sounds right. So I have 8:10. Let's go to 8:15, and then return on at 8:15 promptly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.